Been together for 10 years. If you look at my post history, you'll see we had a tough spot around 4 years ago. I broke up with him thinking I'd fallen out of love. After a while being apart, I decided I wanted to try again and make it work, and it was amazing for around a year. Then it went back to how it was before. So now this is where I'm at, pretty unhappy and not feeling fulfilled at all. I'll try to bullet point our problems. We are not having intimacy. He tries to initiate regularly, but I usually turn him down. I don't feel sexually attracted to him and don't have the desire to have intimacy anymore. It's been around 3 months now, and I could be happy with another 3 years without intimacy, questioning possibly asexuality. Or is it just this relationship? Constant criticisms. It's never in a hateful or spiteful way, but constantly being told I'm dramatic, sensitive, overreacting, being stupid, etc. It starts to wear a person down and makes me feel incredibly low. Different political views. He's right-wing and I'm left. I can respect we have a difference in opinion on some topics, but I worry about issues that may arise when raising future potential children. His mother treats me poorly and makes unkind remarks. He never sticks up for me or says anything to his mom. He is constantly sick. A headache, stomachache, earache, indigestion, bad back. He has no diagnosis of any chronic illness. It's draining listening to him complain daily about this. I think it's anxiety, but he disagrees. Because of his constant state of being sick and unwell, we rarely get out of the house or have to cancel things last minute. I tend to go out and do things on my own now, like going to the movies or trying a new spot for lunch. I don't give him enough affection. I give some cuddles, kisses, and words of affirmation, but I do admit they're not as frequent as they used to be. He complains this makes him feel unloved and that I need to show him more. If I answer the phone in a normal tone, he will ask me to try again in a happier voice. He wants to feel like I'm excited to talk to him or see him. He does not appreciate my job or career, makes ignorant comments, or if I've had a bad day, he doesn't care to understand why or how. He thinks I'm being dramatic. Arguments. We argue so much, more than my friends do with their partners. They're never screaming, crying, throwing things, or violent. They're more like conversations where we go back and forth constantly. These conversations can last for hours. I'm lucky if they only last for 1 hour. They can be over really small, minuscule things. For example, I didn't give him a hug when I saw him, and it made him feel like I wasn't excited to see him. He's told me before he needs more affection. Why aren't I doing it? We never really talk much about anything. We talk about our days, daily things like chores, or something new we saw at the supermarket. But otherwise, we don't talk much. Maybe this is normal in long-term relationships? He says he is always excited to see me, but I feel like it is a chore. Trying to give more affection, trying not to react when he says I'm dramatic, trying to avoid saying something that leads to an argument. I tried to tell him over the weekend that I think we are just not compatible anymore. We got together young, we've both grown up and changed, and I don't think we work well together. I know I have my faults too. These problems in our relationship are because of both of us. I can't meet his needs anymore, and he cannot meet mine. I went over all of the above comments with him, and he basically just denied every point and said it's fine. He thinks the thing that will fix everything is if I just give him more affection. If I do that, then everything else will be fine, as it's just a vicious circle. He's also suggested we try seeing an intimacy therapist. When I tried saying I wasn't happy and think this might be the end, he was telling me I'm just throwing this all away without even trying. I'm done. I'm tired. I just don't know. I can't figure out if I've fallen out of love or if our mundane lives have driven me to such boredom and misery. What should I do? Does this sound like a relationship that can be saved? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Constant criticisms. It's never in a hateful or spiteful way, but constantly being told I'm dramatic, sensitive, overreacting, or being stupid, etc. It starts to wear a person down and makes me feel incredibly low. You say it isn't hateful or spiteful, but it also certainly isn't kind or well-intentioned. You have a whole list of reasons to get the heck out of this relationship, but that one in particular stood out to me because it's just so unnecessary. Comment 2. You are right. You two are clearly very incompatible. You've listed more than enough reasons to part ways, but please remember that it's objectively okay for anyone to end any relationship for any reason. And at the end of the day, it's a unilateral decision. If you want out, it doesn't matter what your partner says because it's over. Now, for the update. A few days after the last argument, I decided to just go to a family barbecue my aunt was hosting. I really just wanted to stay in bed and ignore everything, but my mom was threatening to come over and drag me out of my apartment. So I thought, whatever, let's do this. I asked my partner if they wanted to come, and they reluctantly agreed, but kept complaining about how unwell they felt that morning. I think they were just using that as an excuse to be a total buzzkill, but whatever. I can't control their life, right? So off we went. The barbecue was as lively as ever. There was laughter, the smell of grilled food, and my aunt was already insisting I try her famous potato salad. I'd never tasted it, and I had no intention of doing so this time either. I love my aunt, but that potato salad is awful. My cousin Mark casually brought up his recent trip to Mexico, and it was like a switch flipped on. Everyone started sharing stories of their travels, and for a brief moment, I forgot about all the crap going on in my life. I looked over at my partner, and they were just sitting quietly, scrolling through their phone, occasionally groaning about the heat. I tried to engage them in conversation. Just something to add to the atmosphere and change the mood a bit. But they brushed me off, which I pretty much expected at this point. Mark's girlfriend Sarah playfully asked when we were going to take a trip together, and my partner rolled their eyes and muttered something about not going anywhere. That pretty much summed up our life together, so I tried to shake it off. I got pulled into a game of cornhole with my cousins, and I was honestly just trying to enjoy the day. The partner stayed seated, scrolling on their phone, which drew some concerned glances from family members. I could hear my aunt asking them if they were okay, and they just grunted something in response. At one point, I overheard them complaining about me to my cousin's wife, saying I wasn't supportive. That stung, but I was a little too far gone to care at that moment. I couldn't believe they were using my family to vent about me. I confronted them about the comment, and things escalated into a heated argument right there in the middle of the barbecue. My poor aunt was so confused and concerned. My partner stormed off to the car, and I stood there feeling humiliated, watching as my family tried to wrap things up and calm me down. I finished up the barbecue in embarrassment, made some small talk, and promised to call my aunt to update her later. When I got home, there was my partner sulking on the couch, looking all kinds of miserable. They accused me of making them look bad in front of the family. I didn't even know how to respond to that. They then claimed I was too sensitive and needed to lighten up. Lighten up? I'm sorry, but it's hard to lighten up when your partner is talking bad about you to your family. I really didn't want to have this conversation, so I told them I was going for a walk to clear my head. They mumbled something under their breath, and I just walked out the door. Halfway through my walk, I bumped into my neighbor, who mentioned seeing my partner with someone else at the local diner. My heart dropped. I wasn't sure what they meant by that, but before I could ask for clarification, my neighbor walked away. Later that week, I couldn't get the thought out of my mind, so I went for a late-night drive. I spotted my partner's car parked at the diner, and anxiety shot through me like a bolt of electricity. I couldn't believe it. I walked inside, and there was my partner sitting at a booth with someone else, laughing. My heart sank to my stomach. I approached the booth and saw that the other person was a former friend we had a falling out with. Their eyes were wide, and I could tell my partner was shocked to see me. They stumbled over their words trying to explain, but I cut them off. I was so angry and hurt. I felt like my world was crumbling around me. I left the diner in a storm of emotions, and my mind was racing with all the implications of what I had seen. The next day, I decided enough was enough. I gathered my things while my partner was at work. I found this old box of shared memories and photographs, and I hated myself for what I was about to do but felt it was necessary. I placed the box on the front porch with a note saying, "Take your stuff, I'm done." When my partner arrived home, they found the box and the note, and their expression turned to disbelief. I locked the door, refusing to engage further. The next day, they tried to reach out with texts and calls, but I ignored all attempts. I was just done. I spent time with my family, who noticed the absence of my partner and expressed concern. I shared with them what happened at the diner, and my family was 100% supportive of my decision. I felt like I had a team behind me. As I moved forward, my partner showed up at my workplace one day trying to talk. I remained firm, telling them I needed space and time to figure things out. They attempted to apologize, but I stood my ground. Later, I learned that my partner had been telling people they ended things, which just added to the mess. To answer a few questions, my partner and I had a joint lease, but I found a way out of it. I didn't want to take any shared items or furniture, just the essentials. I wasn't sure about our former friend, but they have since apologized for their part in all this. Am I the idiot for confronting my boyfriend's ex after she spread lies about me? I was with my childhood sweetheart for 8 years. We were never really a good match. He was cold, I was warm, sociable, and wanted to try everything once. We had been together so long that we just sort of stayed that way. We bought our first house together and lost our first pregnancy together. He was very unsupportive during the miscarriage, and one day I realized I did not love him anymore. I then jumped into a relationship with, call him Jim, and Jim excited me. We did all the things I wanted to do, but at 4 months he started to physically hurt me. Jim used me financially. He would cheat on me, cook me food to apologize, but when I kept crying, he told me I was ungrateful and made me either eat my food cold and alone later on, or made me feel so worthless I stopped eating altogether. Jim would strangle me and make me apologize for making him so angry. He would smash the furniture up and tell me I had to go out and get it fixed because I had made him do it. Jim eventually got arrested when he hurt me while my baby brother and mother slept upstairs, and again, I ended up taking him back. I proposed to Jim, and he later proposed to me. We were engaged for about 6 months before he cheated again while on a family holiday and was heard bragging about his stupid fiancée sat at home at the end of one of our phone calls. I was with Jim for 2 years. I think part of me proposed because I was so desperate to make it work. I wanted my happy ending. I had been with my first boyfriend for 8 years, and every year I was told, this will be the year I propose, and it never happened. He got a second job to save for an engagement ring, and I later found out he had gambled thousands away. I think in the end, this fact made me resent him too. I never had anyone really make a fuss of me on birthdays, Valentine's Day, or Christmas. It was me who always used to make the effort. My first boyfriend played video games on Valentine's Day and ignored me, and my second one forgot and beat me for being upset he had forgotten. As a child, my sister was very ill. I had to make a lot of sacrifices to ensure she was okay. For example, I had to move schools to a better one so that she could get a place there too. I left all my friends and was constantly dragged out of lessons whenever she was ill. I started getting boyfriends from the age of 13, I think purely because I wanted to be someone's whole world for a change. I've been with my partner for 5 months. He told me he loved me after the first time we met, introduced me to his 2-year-old daughter a week later, and has told me I am her stepmother. My current boyfriend, Kieran, is very similar to me, except he has a daughter and an ex who is constantly messaging, starting arguments, and telling him how he puts his girlfriend before their baby when he refuses to bail his ex out of her own debts. I have always felt like an outsider in this situation. He told me he wanted to move in with me, and it is yet to happen. I changed my spare room into a baby room for his daughter, and he moved his computer and most of his clothes here, but still lives at home and pays his mother rent. I found out that when he met his ex, he quit his job, moved 3 hours away from his friends and family to be with her, and then when they had been together less than a year, he proposed to her. They then had a baby the following year. I can't help but feel like I will never be his one. He told me last night that he had no worries back then. Life was easier, he was isolated, and wanted that relationship to work. He only left when she kicked him out and wouldn't have ever left his daughter otherwise. He made a wedding plan for her on his phone. On her birthdays, he filled the room with balloons. He decorated and made sure she had everything she ever wanted. Everything I had ever wished for in my partners. I feel like our relationship is tiring. I'm constantly running around for others' enjoyment. I haven't had flowers in a long time, and our intimacy life has slowed down. My weekdays are spent listening to the things his ex has said to him, and weekends are spent at his mother's house or with his daughter. When we are together and he can finally relax, he is too tired for me. I am constantly thinking to myself, he will never love me the way he loved his ex. She gave him the love of his life, his daughter, and I am just some woman that he finds attractive and runs around after him. I feel very worthless, and I do think my past has a lot to do with that, but I worry I will waste more years of my life with someone who promises me the world and cannot stick to that. He told me last night, "Why would I be with you if I didn't plan to marry you?" But I think to myself, I do everything I can. I run him a bath after a hard day. I wash his hair when he is stressed. I cook his meals, wash his clothes. I open my home to him. I drive him everywhere. He can't drive. I take him and his daughter on days out when he can't afford it. I make him packed lunch and write little notes in it. I do everything I can to prove I am worth loving. I have always done that before him, with everyone. I think deep down, I think if I am not valuable and can't be of use, I am not lovable. Love feels very conditional to me when I love so unconditionally. I feel like in my head, the clock is ticking. If he doesn't move in within 6 months like he did with his ex, I am less than her. If he doesn't propose faster than he proposed to her, I am less than her. It hurts because I feel I genuinely go above and beyond to be everything she wasn't, and I will still never be enough. Now, for a few comments before the update. Well, actually, this post didn't have any comments. Now, for the update. 2 days after my last post, I found out that Kieran's ex has been spreading rumors about me. Like, what the actual heck? So, I get this text from Kieran saying his ex called him claiming that I'm trying to replace her. Yeah, right. Kieran was all upset and frustrated about it, which I totally get, but he reassured me that he doesn't believe the rumors. I appreciate that, but why do I have to deal with this? I decided to confront his ex directly because I was just done with all this drama. I went to this local playground where Kieran's daughter plays. You know, the one where his ex takes her all the time. I figured I could talk to her there and clear things up. So I see her and I approach her, and let me tell you, the conversation went bad real fast. She goes off accusing me of trying to take over her role as a mother. Like, lady, I'm not trying to take over anything. I'm just trying to be there for Kieran and his daughter. But she wasn't having it. She threatened to take legal action regarding custody if Kieran didn't end our relationship. Excuse me? I was like, are you serious right now? Kieran overheard part of the argument and had to pull me away. We leave the playground and the car ride home is just silent. So awkward. Later that week, Kieran invites me to a family dinner with his parents. His parents were super welcoming, but I felt this pressure to impress them. You know how it is. During dinner, Kieran's mom casually asks about marriage plans, and I'm just sitting there like, oh great, here we go. Kieran brushes off the question, which honestly made me feel a bit uneasy. So, the following weekend, we go to a birthday party for Kieran's daughter, and guess who shows up? The ex. She brings this super lavish gift that totally draws attention away from me. Kieran gets all caught up in the moment, focusing on his daughter's excitement while I'm standing there feeling ignored. I try to engage with Kieran, but I feel invisible as the ex dominates the conversation. Frustrated, I decide to take a break and step outside for some air. Kieran notices I'm gone and comes outside to check on me. We have this tense conversation about the ex's presence and how it affects me. I just want Kieran to understand how her presence makes me feel, and all he can say is he wants to focus on our future. Yeah, but what about this present situation? The next day, I find this message from Kieran's ex on social media, taunting me about being a stepmother. I showed it to Kieran, and he was like, it's not worth our time to deal with this. Seriously. So we decide to go on this short trip to a cabin to reconnect and just escape all this drama. But of course, during our trip, Kieran's daughter gets sick, and we have to cut our getaway short. Kieran has to take his daughter to a nearby clinic, leaving me alone at the cabin. He comes back and immediately senses something is off with me. He asks if I looked through his things, and I admit to finding this box. Instead of comforting me, he gets all annoyed that I invaded his privacy. Like, what was I supposed to do? After returning home, he suggests we take a break from discussing moving in together. This is just getting ridiculous. His ex continues to reach out, and it escalates to sending direct messages about co-parenting. I just couldn't take it anymore, so I decided to block the ex. This leads to another argument with Kieran, and we have this serious talk about our future, but he remains non-committal. I'm just tired. Edit, this has been a difficult time. Kieran's daughter is not sick anymore, and she's a bright and fun little girl. Kieran is a great dad, and I really care about his daughter. Kieran and I are still together, but I feel so lost. I'm stuck in this limbo, not knowing where I stand with him. Am I the idiot for feeling betrayed after my boyfriend asked for a break and then enjoyed it with another woman? My partner, a 22-year-old male of 3 years, asked to take a break. He said it's because he's thinking about me 24/7, that he feels trapped in our relationship, and it has caused his anxiety and obsessive-compulsive disorder to make him suffer. I will also state that we were going through kind of a rough patch for the last few months, and we were not being very nice to one another. No abuse or violence. It was just us pushing each other away, and both of us having a shorter fuse. This break has been going on for about 2 weeks now, and all I'm going to say is that I am not taking it well. I have always been confident that he was my life partner. We were planning our wedding and wanting children eventually. I've been in many relationships, and this one was a whole new experience. I could barely stay tied down for a few months before him, but he's the only one I'd ever want to be with forever. And this break has only solidified what I already knew. It has brought out a whole new kind of love, and I have done a lot of self-reflection. I've taken the time to realize my faults, how I've acted previously, and have already been working on myself and trying to show him that I am dedicated to us. Because the kind of person I was influenced by my hurtful parents, and that's definitely not who I want to be. A lot has happened in our relationship, and during this break, it would be a whole novel long if I went into the details, so I'll try to summarize as best I can. He has said a lot of things and is always trying to explain further, so it's hard to know what I should be taking from our talks sometimes. He wants us to mature more. He wants me to still enjoy the things in life and still be friends with him. He wants to cuddle still, and we sleep in the same bed. Can't change that even if we wanted to due to living arrangements. I've been so depressed and I am terrified for our future. He says that if we're meant to be together, we will be, and we just need time. I feel so hopeless sometimes, like he's punishing me. He's told me that he isn't, and that I'll be okay. I don't understand how he can say that when he's torn out my heart and is just hovering a hammer over it, testing me. He's also said that I shouldn't try to earn him back or prove anything to him. He just wants self-improvement, which I can support. I guess what I'm asking is, what do I do? My anxiety and obsessive-compulsive disorder are making me spiral into the worst possible outcomes, and I can't help but just randomly cry. I'm recently unemployed due to an injury and disability, so therapy is probably not possible. How do I get through this? How do I make this easier on myself? The thought of this break being longer than it has been already is so scary. I've been searching online for ways to help, but I still feel lost. I've been writing poetry, which I used to do in high school, and it's been very therapeutic, and I've been journaling. How do I get through this? How do I keep myself together? What do I do? Too long. Didn't read. My partner of 3 years wants a break. He says that he'd prefer us to be together and will probably be together again, but I'm stuck suffering alone until he decides he wants me. What do I do to help deal with this pain? To add, this is just a throwaway account and post. I wanted advice from people who don't know me or my relationship personally, so I could get an outsider's view on this. Any advice helps. Now, for a few comments before the update. Well, actually, this post did not have any comments. Now, for the update. 2 days after my last update, I came back home after a long day of job hunting and found my partner just chilling on the couch, scrolling through his phone. I was pretty exhausted, so I didn't think much of it at first. He looked up at me and casually mentioned he was thinking about going out with some friends that evening. And here's the thing, when I offered to join, he was all like, "Nah, I need some space." So I just shrugged it off and told him to have fun, though I couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. I mean, what was up with needing space all of a sudden? Later that night, I was feeling restless, Just couldn't settle down, so I decided to go for a walk to clear my head. While I was out wandering around, I passed by this bar and heard all this laughter coming from inside. And then, I recognized my partner's voice. My heart kind of sank, but I was curious, so I stepped inside and saw him sitting at a table with two other friends. One of them was this woman I'd met once before during a casual get-together. I felt this knot in my stomach, but I just walked past them and didn't interrupt. Then I heard my partner joking about how he was really enjoying the break from us and how nice it was to have time for himself. That was it for me. I quietly slipped out of the bar, walked home, and felt all kinds of uneasy. The next day, I confronted him about what I saw. He insisted it was just a casual hangout and nothing more. I wanted to believe him, but I was starting to doubt everything. A few days later, I got a text from my younger sibling inviting me to a family dinner. I agreed to go, hoping it would distract me from all this mess. During dinner, my parents started discussing future plans, including weddings and kids. That was a bit rough, but it got worse when my brother announced he and his wife were trying for a second child. My parents were just beaming with joy, and I felt so small and lost in comparison. After dinner, my mom pulled me aside and asked about my plans with my partner. I hesitated a bit because I didn't know how to explain the whole break thing, but I just said we were taking it slow. She nodded, but I could see there was concern in her eyes, and it made me uneasy. That night, I came home and found my partner on the couch, staring blankly at the TV. It was like he was there, but not really there. A few days after that, I noticed he got a call from an unknown number. After the call, he just seemed really distant and distracted. I wanted to ask about it, but when I did, he brushed it off and said it was nothing. I was starting to feel like we were just living in the same space without any connection. One evening, while he was in the shower, I caught a glimpse of a text notification from that same woman from the bar. I didn't read the message, but seeing her name just made my heart sink. Tensions were building between us, and we were becoming more and more distant. I mean, it was like we were just two roommates sharing a space. The next family dinner was coming up, and I felt pressured to bring him along. I asked him to come, but he hesitated and said he wasn't sure if he was ready for all that family scrutiny. I understood where he was coming from, but I still felt a bit upset that he didn't want to be there for me. As the day of the dinner approached, I noticed he was spending more time on his phone, texting late into the night. I didn't want to snoop, but it was hard not to notice. The day of the dinner arrived, and I decided to go alone. I just couldn't deal with any more confrontation that day. At the dinner, my parents asked about my partner, and I really felt the weight of their expectations. It was like they were just waiting for me to say we were back on track and everything was fine. That night, my partner was already in bed when I got home, and I quietly joined him. It was just so hard to know where we stood after all of this. To answer a few questions, my partner and I have been living together for about a year, and I pay half the rent. I haven't discussed the situation with my friends because I'm not sure how to explain it. After noticing the text from the woman, I felt I couldn't snoop further and instead focused on our increasing distance. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.